Okay. Now we're
Okay,
good.
now we're starting again. Sorry, everybody, for your patience. We are figuring out the technology here, try to have online and offline at the same time. Seems like now we're officially make it work. Online people, if you have trouble, chat us, put in the box, and it looks like we have the screen up. Everybody is on, off we go. And so without further ado, we have Beth to talk to us about today's topic, from PDF to beautifully formatted Word document. Thank you for those joining in from online and from folks here, brave souls, and glad to see you all. Here we go. Beth?
All right, everybody. So we'll go ahead and get started. So we all know that we're not just, we're not just language, because we're working with documents. We have to be not just linguists, but we have to be formatters, we have to be software experts. So there's a lot involved that we might not have, have expected when we started this journey. So, but we all know that a proper translation should be should look as close as possible to the source doc. So most of us get our source docs in PDFs, JPEGs, various image files, but we need that in an editable format. So, because we need to be able to do that translation, and we also need that to work with our translation memory software. So, but we have tools, software tools that will help us. So first of them is OCR. OCR is optical character recognition. For those of you in the room, does anybody use OCR already? Rock on. Good to hear. So some of this might be a little bit of overkill for you if you're already using stuff. So, but I might be able to teach you some new tricks today. So the other thing is translation memory software, which we're not really going to talk about today because we're talking more about formatting, word processing, and desktop publishing. I personally, we're not going to get into desktop publishing today, but that's other tools like InDesign and other software tools that are specifically for desktop publishing. So we're gonna start today with OCR software. So you basically have three options. One is using the built-in OCR engines. Adobe has them, Word has them, various other types of software have built-in OCR engines. They are not very good. the results you get out of them are unreliable at best. They don't have good recognition, and it's not up to par with other dedicated software tools. The amount of languages it can handle is limited. Usually just kind of the big few. Not even sure how many Asian languages that most of them can handle. There's generally no additional cost, which but really should be used only in a pinch. I have used it occasionally when I'm traveling and I'm not on my personal computer, so I will use it then. But only, like I said, only in a pinch. One of the other big softwares for this is Omnipage. Omnipage I used to use. I do not recommend it. The recognition engine really does not do well with unclear text. Now that said, I haven't used Omnipage in several years, so it might have gotten better. So, but one thing that I know it still is doing is the their output to Word is, they call it True Page. And the output that it comes in is really, really, really hard to deal with in Word. So for that reason, I don't recommend it. One nice thing that OmniPage does do, and I, give credit where credit is due, it learns as you verify. So as you're verifying text, and if you have a document that it keeps recognizing E's as O's, and you keep changing those, it learns and it'll stop doing that, like for the next page, and that, which is a really nice feature. I kind of wish Abby would do that. But the other drawbacks of OmniPage have me, staying far, far away. Cost of OmniPage is $149. And then there's Abby Fine Reader. Abby is the industry standard. They have 198 recognition languages. So generally, any language, probably any language that you are going to translate into or out of, they probably have. I can only vouch for the Spanish engine. That one I know very well and how it works, but I'm sure the other ones work, equally well. And you really get the best results from Abby. And it has great image editing tools, and we're going to go into that in a second. Abby has recently changed to instead of you buy the software and you use it until they stop supporting it, they've now moved to a subscription model like most other softwares. So you're gonna it's $99 a year now. So that's for the newest version. There are on 16. I think that's for Abby 16. So getting started with Abby. One kind of first step, Abby defaults to auto processing images as you but when it gives you a mixture of text and image and tables and things like that. It does whatever it thinks you're going to want. Believe me, what it thinks you want is not what you want. So you want to turn off that auto processing. You can turn that off in two places. You can either turn that off in the open image dialog, like when you go to open an image file, or in the options menu, we'll turn it off forever. So the best way to deal with documents in Abby that I have found is using full page tables. It's a little counterintuitive when you first start doing that, but it makes you're drawing a full page table over the whole thing, and that lets you keep everything in its place, and it's just much easier to deal with. And so if that PDF or JPEG or whatever image file you have is skewed, distorted in any way, has stray marks, you're going to use the image editor before drawing your table. So Abby has a thing, when you pull up a page in Abby, there's a little warning, or not warning, there's a little message it'll say there, pre-processed images, it wants you to pre-process them. In general, go ahead and do that. The only time I will tell you not to do their pre-processing is if your page size is not a full page. If you're dealing with something that's like, I don't know, an ID or something like that, and you've got like a picture of an ID, it'll want to move that, or what the pre-processing will do is try to make that full page instead of the size it is. So I don't recommend it for things like that. But for a regular document, you're going to try the pre-processing first. It'll deskew and a couple of other little things, but mostly it's deskewed. So if you have something that's slightly skewed, it actually works really, really well. If not, then you want to do edit image. So that is, you can't do that. There it is. So you want to hit edit image, and this, when you pull it up in the image editor, this is what comes up. This is your menu of things that you can edit. So there's your recommended pre-processing at the top. Deskew is its own tool. Straighten text lines is fairly helpful if you've got, if you've got kind of things that are a little wonky. Photo correction is, you can see here all of these all of the photo correction tools right there. I don't use the motion blur very often, or the ISO knows, but whiten background is really, really helpful. And the geometrical distortions, which is really good for, like, because sometimes people, somebody will take a picture of their document, they're holding it in their hand and they're taking a picture of it. We've all dealt with that. And so they're holding it in their hand, and so it's distorted. It's not laying flat. And so the geometrical distortions is really, really good with that. Trapezoid distortion is really helpful as well. If you have something that's kind of skewed, you can basically just draw essentially a trapezoid, whatever the edges of the document are, even if those edges are not straight, you can draw it and then it'll basically adjust. Rotate and flip is not something that I really ever need to use, but yeah, if you have something that's backwards or something. Split, I have used split occasionally when I've had something where I've had, like, I had a one that I was doing that was two different IDs on a page, and they were going different directions. So what I did is I actually did a split, and so I could turn them around, turn the one around that needed to be turned around. So then I moved them back together in Word later. Crop for when you're, when you have things like somebody took a picture of it and you've got a bunch of background images around the document, you can crop all that out. And one of the ones I use most often is eraser, down at the bottom there. So for stray marks, you've got, like, something is faxed and you've got like a line going, vertical line going through it from the fax. You can erase that. It's really, really helpful. Yep. Which question? Not well. Oh, sorry. We had a question from the floor here. Would the split tool be useful if your source doc is in columns? And possibly, but table format handles the columns. So it's a step. It's probably an extra step you don't really need. So, full page tables in Abby. So this is, and I will say to you, this is not the way I used to do things. The company I'm working for now, we use Abby there, and this is how the project managers deal with it. This is how they do the source files, and it's really, really useful. And when I first started there, and they gave us an Abby tutorial, and like, she brings it up and it's just drawing the table, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a game changer. So it's really, really useful. So you start with your page. Now that you've edited it, it looks straight, it's ready to go, and you draw the table over the whole thing, over the whole page. And then you're going to right click and you're going to click on Analyze Table Structure. And it'll basically look at the document, at the page, and what it'll do is, essentially put in the structure it thinks you're going to want. Sometimes it's really good, sometimes not so much. You can also put in all those horizontal and vertical separators, kind of make your table yourself and just manually do it. I find that analyzing table structure basically gets me a starting point. So that's the way I do it. So then once it's done that, then you're going to look at it, take a look and see, okay, where did it fail me? What do I now need to add? So and a tip, you want to add in your vertical separators first and then your horizontal. I am going to do a little tutorial for you in a little bit. And so I will show you some of these things. But you want to do your verticals first and then your horizontals. And the reason you want to do that is there are less cells you'll have to merge later if you do it that way. When you're looking, when it does the auto analyze, there'll be certain lines that'll be kind of grayed out, and those grayed out lines are basically things that where Abby looked at and said, oh no, that doesn't actually need a separator there, but the line is there for another section. So it's easier actually to do a split cells on that where it's, and to put back what you need, because sometimes it thinks you don't want a separator there, but you really do. So, it thinks it, just like any tool, it thinks it knows what you want. Doesn't mean it actually does. So, and then once you've got your verticals in, then you're going to merge cells as needed until your table looks right. And you always want to make sure that there's no separators in the middle of a word, because that'll break things up when it pulls it. Well, not only when it pulls it into Abby, just for the text recognition too. You just want to make sure that it's not blocking anything. So if you're going to be using translation memory software, you want to make sure that sentences or phrases that wrap around from one line to the next are all in one cell. Because otherwise they will be two separate cells when you load them into your translation memory, and you're going to have a broken cell, a broken translation segments. And just a word to the wise, just one of these little quirks, Abby, especially for things that are like double spaced, so there's a lot of space between lines, it'll sometimes want to put each line in its own cell. And when it does that, your instinct will be to just, select all those and merge them. And I'm going to advise you not to do that. Because if you're excuse me, if you merge them, it's harder to adjust in Word later. So you want to just get rid of, you can just, you switch to the horizontal tool in, as you're looking at your table in Abby, and just click over the horizontal that's already there, and it'll exit out, and you'll just get rid of those separators, and then your document going into Word is going to be much easier to deal with. So for things like stamps, handwritten text, other things that basically are not something that Abby is going to immediately recognize as regular text, you want to leave cells of the correct size, essentially, and then those you will have to retype in Word after you export it, but that's much less retyping than retyping a whole document. So and I'll show you an example of that. So for things like logos, barcodes, QR codes, I generally don't leave those in the document. Some people want to. If you're one of those people that wants to leave them in the document, you can actually select area properties, and that's, oops, hold on, go back. And that's this little, you're going to have to select that right there. And then this little, the treat selected cells as picture. You're just going to click on that and put it in. You're going to check that box. And then it will just take that cell and make it an image. And that image will go right into your table in Word. So you can also, from this same little menu here, you can change your text orientation. And that's up the top of the little screenshot there. It's right about there. So you can change that. Your options there under orientation are normal, which is just horizontal, and then rotated right and rotated left. So you can change that however the orientation is of the text that you've got. So which is, a lot of times you have things like in a, am I thinking of, and like a transcript or something like that. Sometimes there's a vertical thing along the side. You can actually make it look, then it's looking at the vertical when it's recognizing the text. And so otherwise it's not going to recognize the text because it's vertical instead of horizontal. So you can actually change that right there. So then once you've got your table set, you click recognize page. And then Abby it takes a second. Abby will come through and then it's going to highlight in aqua, in that aqua colors in there, any things that it's not sure of. It likes to do that for like ones and I's and things like that, or I's and L's that don't seem to be right. O's and zeros. It'll often highlight those to think, it wants you to check those. It wants you to make sure that they're actually right. Like in this one here, that C in ciclo, the second one, it's wondering if that's actually an E. That's why it's highlighted there. It wants to make sure that that C is actually a C and not an E. So, and then you're going to click on verify, which is at the top right of the screen. And it'll just basically take you through all of those and you'll check them all and you can correct any errors right in that box. Right in the main box here. So like this, in the thing they would say, this is right here from your image file. And this is the text it's on. So you need to change that A to a U. And if everything was right, you would just hit skip. Because a lot of times it'll highlight things that aren't really wrong. It just wants you to take another look at it. And so you can just skip those. So then this is a thing that you have to do page by page. So you're going to repeat all your steps for each page. And then when all your pages are done, that's when you export it as a Word document. Now, in the export menu at the top, you want it on Word Save. There's another option that's Send to Word, but you don't really want to do that. Because you want to make sure you have separate files. So you want to do save a Word document rather than just send the things to Word. And you want it to be on editable copy. That's your format. There are other options instead of editable copy. There's formatted text. There's text only. I'm forgetting what all the options are because I never use them anymore. I used to sometimes use them before I learned the table trick, and I would let it pre-process. I would sometimes use that, but now I just use the editable copy, and it does a pretty darn good job. So Abby has some quirks. If you've used it before, it's a great tool. It really is, but it does not format Word documents clean. It will try to make that Word doc look exactly like the PDF. So to do that, it uses all sorts of odd spacing, formatting, margins. You end up with a document that's really kind of odd, but we can fix all that. So once you've saved that Word doc from Abby and exported it, then you have to clean up your Word. And this is where we switch gears from Abby to Word. So just a little kind of on toolbars. You always want to make sure your ruler is visible because you need your ruler to line things up. I don't understand people who do this without a ruler, but you want to and that's in the view menu, ruler. And then in the table layout menu, you want to turn on table grid lines if they're not already on. Chances are they may be already on, but if they're not, then you want to turn them on because you need to see those. And that's just the gray grid lines, not like borders. And so just, this is just kind of a note to you to familiarize yourself with the toolbars and all the things that are in the ribbon, all the things that it can do. So you have, your home is where most of your stuff is that you use on a daily basis. And then over here, and there's a design and layout over here. That is your table design and layout. And so you're going to use those a lot using full page tables. That's different than the design and layout that's over to the left. Those are for the full page. The ones on the right are just for the table. So then, begs the question, your table toolbars. So your table layout toolbar, there's a lot of helpful things on there. And a lot of these things you can get to them by right clicking on a cell also, but you can also get to them from the menus. And especially you may need that, especially if you're at an editing process rather than a translation process, and so you've got track changes on. And so then, you click on a cell and try to change and right click on it. And it's asking you if you want to, accept the format change rather than actually pulling up the menu that you want to pull up. So in that case, you would go to the toolbars here. So merge and split cells are in there. And cell alignment, which is these in here. These cell alignments here are your bread and butter. Once you're working in tables, this is, you're going to use these all the time. And then text direction is in there. If for some reason you didn't notice something was vertical, you didn't remember to change something to vertical in Abby, and now you need vertical text, you can do it here from the toolbar. And then the insert and delete rows and columns and all that is, most of this you can get from right clicking on a cell, but if you need them from the toolbars, they're there. Your full table your view grid lines is right there, and your on the left, and then your table properties, the full table properties, which honestly I use more than I would have expected. Because there are certain things you kind of need to change, for the whole table. So, and just a quick note to save you some time. I don't know if everybody knows this. Again, when I learned this, it was like a game changer. Word lets you, and I assume any Office, I assume this is not just a Word thing, but I'm assuming you can do it in Excel and other products as well. But there's a quick access toolbar. And it lets you pin things to the top of your ribbon and give you easy access to stuff. Like, and I have my turn on paragraph marks is up in there. I have my border menu up in there. And just so that I can easily get to stuff when I'm on another tab, it's still available because I've pinned it to the quick access. So to use that, you're going to right click on whatever command, and then click on add to quick access toolbar. You can also move that quick access instead of being at the very top. You can move it below the ribbon if you want to. So just a little aside there. So there are certain global settings that you should do on every document. One is your first thing is you're going to select out, Control A to select all. You're going to make your page sizes letter or legal. Working from Spanish, I get a lot of documents sent to me that are A4. So, you know, those A4 pages. I don't want them in A4 because I can't print in A4. I want those in letter. So letter or legal is generally what you're always going to use. So depending on the size of your source doc. So you want to make sure it does that, because there are times when Abby doesn't do that automatically. You would think it does. It doesn't necessarily. So you always want to check that. And then once you've gotten your page size set, margins. You want to start with either narrow, which is 0.5 all around, you know, top, bottom, left and right, or normal, you know, 1 inch all around. Depending, I mean, that'll depend on your document, but it's a good, doing either the narrow or the normal is a good starting point. And looking at your PDF, you can know whether you've got enough room to do normal or whether you need to do narrow. I find that especially things like transcripts and stuff like that, there's a lot on that page and I need all the space I can get. So for that, I use the narrow, and those things can be adjusted later if you need, you know, if stuff is not quite fitting on the page, you know, because of expansion or things, you know, you can adjust that. But that's a good rule of thumb. And then there's certain font settings that you want for the whole thing. It's good practice in general to make sure that your whole document is the same font. Whether it's Arial, whether it's Times New Roman, whether it's whatever you want it to be, don't care, whatever you're doing, put it all the same. You know, again, Control A and do all of it. And then you also want everything scaled to 100%, so nothing is condensed or expanded, and spacing normal. And I'm going to show you that on the next screen there. Show you what I mean there. And then paragraph settings, you start with everything single spaced unless you were looking at your document and you know that single space is not the right choice, then put it whatever it should be, but start with the whole thing the same. And then you want your space before and after paragraph being set to 0 point. And the reason you want to do those is because, like, again, Abby will do weird things and it will, you know, it will put your spacing as, you know, 1.43 instead of 1.5 or 1, or, you know, so, you know, and it'll be 1.43 for this line and it'll be 1.35 for that line. So again, Abby has quirks. So you're going to want to just make it all uniform, and you can change, you know, Control A is honestly your best friend. So it's much quicker, and you'll to just change that global setting first. And then there's going to be outliers. There's going to be things that, you know, that you're going to need double spaced or 1.5 instead of single or whatever. You can change those one by one when you need it. But, you know, this is a good starting point. So here's those font settings I was talking about. So when you've got Control A selected, and you pull up the font menu, this is what it's going to look like on the left here. So you see those kind of, oops, I did it when I used the wrong button. So you see those kind of boxes in the boxes. So you just want to unclick all of those. And it's especially important to unclick small caps, because small caps is one of those things that Abby loves to put in when they don't belong. I don't know why it loves small caps, but it does. So that one's an important one. And then under advanced, come here. So under advanced, this is now the advanced over here. This is where you want to change your scale to 100, your spacing to normal, and your position to normal. And you just want to make sure that's then for the entire text. And then here, you know, we've got your paragraph settings. So if you select an area of text, and then pull up the paragraph settings menu, this is what you're going to see. And you want to really watch out for things that are blank, that don't have a value in them, like where I've got it circled there. So blank means that not all of the selected text is the same. So there's what I was talking about there, like the line spacing, like, okay, this section of this paragraph is space 1.43. That section is space 1.135. So this is where you're going to fix that. So you can, that's what that means. When that is blank, that means there's something that is not the same throughout. So that you're going to fix that. And also in this example, also the after spacing is not the same. There are people who will tell you to use the don't add space between paragraphs of the same style. I disagree. I never select that. I have a person on my team at work who loves doing that, and I'm like, and I'll be doing formatting work on something that she's worked on. It'll be the, and I'm like, why is this not doing what I wanted? I pull up the paragraph menu. Oh, it's because she selected that. So don't do it. So one of the most frustrating little Abby quirks, and one of the ways it tries to make things, look exactly like the source document, is it will use indenting to line up a text instead of aligning properly. So these things just need to be fixed. You can see in this example I've got here, you see where there's your left indent right there. Instead of right justifying this, it did that. Where whoever designed Abby thought that was a good idea, I have no idea. But we have to fix that. So the easiest way to fix that is to select the whole table, and then you're going to open your paragraph settings and set left and right indent to 0. That gives you the whole cell to work with and all the cells in the whole table. And then you can go through later and fix the alignment, like, because, if I do that on this, on this little portion right here, it's going to put this all the way over there, right? So yeah, and you just go back, and for that column, I'm going to make that column right justified. So, and that's a much quicker fix than doing them one by one. So some other table settings that are really useful. You want to set your vertical cell alignment, so how it sits in, in the cell vertically, to centered. Select your whole table, right click, open table properties, and then the cell tab. And that's doing it this way instead of doing it from the chooser of the layout chooser from the layout toolbar, lets you take some. And so even if things are left justified or centered justified or full justified or right, it'll center it vertically without changing those. So that's a game changer. That's a very useful one. Doing it from here, from the overall table properties, lets you do that for like a table where this column is right justified, that column is left, and it lets you keep that left and right the same, but put everything centered in vertically in each cell, which just lines up better. So, and then you can change individual cells or rows later if you need to. I find things with like sometimes like with bank statements where you have things that are on that each cell is basically 2 lines. Those are generally top, those you want top on vertical rather than center, but those things can be changed. So another thing, and sometimes like these things are some things that, sometimes, you will, as you're going through Abby, you will miss that something should have been, in a, like, if you look at this here, you see how those are basically tabbed. Instead of in table where it should be. So the person who did the document prep in Abby on this one did not see that this was not my document. I do not take credit for that. If I were doing it, it wouldn't be like that. But but every once in a while, things will get by you too. So, and you'll miss it while you're in Abby, and so you'll have to fix it in Word. But if you have those in table format, it's just much easier to line things up. So what I would do in this case, if I had something like this where I missed it, so then you're going to just basically, you're going to split the cells. So this is, you're going to do 1 column, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your basic, oh, actually that's the whole line, isn't it? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you're going to basically just split that line and then just move the text into the proper cells. So, and you also want to, and this is again something that occasionally happens because you missed it in Abby, but you can see on this one that this got missed in Abby. That somebody didn't realize that there was a separator there that should have been gotten rid of, but wasn't. So, you can, you of course want to do that in Abby, but if you miss it, then you can just merge those cells so that you can then bring that text back together. And when you do that, when you have something like that, that you've merged them, not in Abby, but in Word, it's going to put a hard return where that cell border was. So you'll have to just delete that to make it all one word again. So you also want to keep an eye on cell spacing and margins. And this is something, and sometimes it happens because you're moving some text around and you didn't realize you did it. And then if you look at like this one here, the right side is cut off here. It goes out, and then no. And then this one here too, you can see it's all, that whole left side is cut off. And you can tell up here, this is why it's cut off, because your left indent is a negative. It takes you outside the cell, so you need to move that back. So it's something that you need to just look out for. And when you're looking over a text, once it's in Word, just make sure that everything is where it should be and that all text is visible. So you always want to work smarter, not harder, right? So for multi-page projects, if you have pages that are identical, make sure they're actually identical. Format one of them and then copy and paste. That applies, if you get a project that's multiple files and and page 3 of each document is the exact same, format one of them and then just copy them into the other files. Again, why duplicate the work, right? So same thing goes with, in this one I use a lot, pages with identical headers and footers. Because we see a lot of stuff like that where every page has the same header or every page has the same footer. And those headers and footers, a lot of times, because they're basically the letterhead, right? A lot of times they're hard to format. So format them once, copy them over. Again, don't duplicate your work. And then just this one's kind of a rule of thumb. If you can line up margins, left and right margins from page to page, if you can, great. Don't stress over it if you can't. So it's not that big of a deal, but try if you can. And one nice way to deal with that is if let's say you're using 0.5 margins, you're using narrow margins. 0.5 margins on an 8.5 by 11 page means you have half inch on each side, right? So you can make your full table, the table width 7.5. Ta-da! You've just made all your margins the same. That's a little trick for you. And then another kind of nice little time saver, columns with dollar amounts. For things, anything with a dollar amount, they're really easy to line up if you line them up right justified. Not so easy if you're left or centered or anything else. So, and just a couple of best practices here. Don't make your font size too small. 5 point is honestly the smallest anything should ever be. Preferably at least 6. And you're only using 5 or 6 point when there's so much text on that page and you can't fit things in. You're not using it all that much, but don't go smaller than that, because the person your client is not going to be able to read anything. So, and then make sure your bolded and underlined text matches the source, because Abby doesn't always do that all that well. So sometimes it doesn't realize something is bolded when it should be, or it will look at basically a line below something and make that underlined instead of basically a table border. So you'll have things that end up like double underlined, and so you want to watch for those. Another thing that is just kind of a little quirky, sometimes the text that comes out of Abby, instead of being black, will be gray or dark blue. And it's something that you don't necessarily notice until you're looking at the whole document, and you're like, why does that piece look different? It's because the text was dark gray instead of black. So you can just, again, select all and change all of those. And you also want to check for stray superscript or subscript, and the small caps that I mentioned already. And those are one of those just like little quirks that every once in a while it'll come through, and sometimes something will be in like there's a line that's, a lot of times it happens when something is distorted in the source text. It'll make it like superscript because it thinks it's smaller, and it'll make that whole little section superscript instead of. So you just want to kind of watch for those and get rid of them when you see them. So, yes, okay. I was gonna say, I thought that was my last one, but I do want to go through a little tutorial here as well. But for that, yeah, let's do questions. We'll do that first, and then we'll go back and do. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, can you hear me now online? So we have a question from Pat. Does Microsoft 365 have a built-in OCR? Is it good?
It does. It is not good. But good question.
Okay.
Yeah, as I was preparing this presentation, I actually tried it. It's not good.
But it can do something, but it's not a full.
Yeah, if your source is really a Word document, it's going to do better, or something that was a Word document that was made into a PDF. It's going to do better with that than something that's heavily imaged.
Good. Pat, if you have further follow-up, you feel free to ask, unmute your microphone. And Angela asked, okay, good. What were the 3 things to adjust to normal under advanced?
Okay.
That slides, maybe you can go back to that one.
Let me go back to that. There it is. Okay.
Hang on, let me find it. Hang on. Font. Okay, here we go. Yeah.
So the 3 things you want normal are the scale, and these are all in the advanced font toolbar. So scale, spacing, and position.
Those
And
three.
And everybody here in the room and on Zoom
We'll get a copy.
will
of
get
the
a copy of the
so
PDF. So
I
I meant to mention that earlier and I didn't.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so does that answer your question, Angela? All right. Okay, let's see.
Yes,
That's
thank you.
the two questions we have for now.
Okay.
And for the demonstration, I have a suggestion because my computer is not equipped with your demonstration. Why don't you, I'm gonna pause the recording. You run for the onsite and then run again with your Zoom on your computer. We do consec.
Okay.
So that you run again for the online people, so we can record that portion. Okay.
Okay.
David, right?
Yes.
Yes, nice to see you.
I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh,
I thought it was like,
oh, great to see you here.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, yeah, that's just a font. Yeah.
That's just a thought.
But do they have like Urdu, Hindi, Punjabi, those kind of language spoken in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh?
The question is whether there's other,
Is your question of whether those fonts are available in Word? Generally, yes. And it may be a question of having to download a font occasionally, but there should be certain ones that are built in. I know I've seen Arabic fonts. I'm unaware of the differences because my language is Spanish. So, but you noticed it, right? And it's a good question.
So we have the same alphabet like Persian, Urdu, and Arabic. We have the same alphabet.
Okay,
So I'm sure that.
okay. But yeah, there may be specific fonts for that, and it may be something that you might have to download. And there's places all over where you can download fonts. So that may be something that is a specific font you want to download, but it might be built into. You just have to look through all the fonts that are available in the version of Word that you have. Mhm. Other questions?
other questions online? Beth is gonna do a demonstration because her computer the demonstration can be only done on her computer, but her computer is connected with the projector. So we're gonna pause our recording here. She's gonna do live demonstration to the folks on site. Then we'll come back on online to you folks. I'm gonna videotape this portion for you, okay? Instead of recording it. Okay, we're gonna pause it.
Okay. Okay. So this is a document that I have open in Abby. And this, sorry, just repeating a little bit for the recording. And then this document was obviously a picture that was taken of a document and not a scan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to edit image here. And I'm going to go to crop. And basically just resize that to size of the document, the actual document. Oops, a little too far. Well, actually, not really too far because I don't need that. That, and because I don't need those there. And then I'm just gonna crop. And now the full document is that size. So then I am going to, okay, I'm gonna come down here to, oops, sorry, I'm gonna to straighten text lines because I can see it's a little bit wonky. And that's better. And then I'm going to go in here in photo correction and whiten background. And then this is now to. So there you can some that Abby is going to read much. You can look in this and see that it's not, the text in here is not real great. And it's going to have problems with that, but it's going to do the best it can. but then I'm gonna exit the image editor. And here's where I'm gonna draw the table. So I'm gonna come over here to table. And I'm gonna stop here and just pull full size table over the whole. And right click and analyze table structure. There we go. And so you can see things that Abby did well and things that it didn't. So this up here is something that I don't necessarily, there's a stamp here that it needs to all be moved. But I'm gonna just get rid of the extra horizontals here that don't need to be here. And then I'll merge those. And that way, merge. And this I'm gonna pull down a little bit because I can see that it kind of tried to cut it off. Okay. And I'm gonna put a little horizontal there. There's only really one place where it failed me on the verticals, and it's down here. And you might be able to kind of see here that that grayed out line right there. So I'm going to switch to my select tool, and I'm going to right click and then split cells, and there it's back. Because what I'm trying to do there is get this QR code all in one cell. So, and then I see here where it cut off this word. So I can move it over there. But I want to look and make sure it didn't screw anything up here. And you can see where it kind of did. But because this is here, neither word is cut off. So I'm going to leave it like this, and then I can fix that in Word later. Abby will try to make a character there, and I can just delete that. So now I'm going to go through, and I'm basically just going to merge cells where they need to be merged. And here, we're going to get rid of these extra horizontals that don't need to be there. And then we'll merge that, so that's all in one cell. Merge. That one it did right, one it did. Okay. And so then you're just going to kind of go through here. I'm not going to go through all of it. You get the idea. But I'm just going to kind of giving you an idea. You want to make sure that these are, oops, see that cut that off. So I don't want that one there. And then show you this. I can take this and I can merge them all back. I can merge this together, and then here is where you go to show area properties, and I can treat that selected cell as picture if I wanted to leave that QR code. And I could do the same thing for like a signature if I wanted to. And I do sometimes do that when I'm just so that Abby doesn't think that there's something there it needs to recognize. So, and then once I would have this all the way it should be, I'm gonna recognize the page. Takes a minute. And then I would go through and click on verify up here. And now now the funny thing is if you look at this, it's questioning the O, but what it actually got wrong was the L and the I here. So I'm just gonna and change that and confirm. And here it wants to make sure that that is really a 5. It is, so I could just skip. And here, the barcode, it tried to make characters out of it. I'm just going to leave that alone. I can delete that in Word. I could also delete it here either way. But if I'm not going to go through all of this, but I'm just giving you an idea. And then once you're done with all of that and you've gone through all the verification, then you're going to come up here to Word save. You want to make sure it's an editable copy. It should be because that's the default. And you just hit save and tell it where to save it and what you're going to name it. So this one. So this is the document that came out of Abby. Well, this is the edited document that came out of Abby. This is one that I already fixed, made sure I fixed everything and is ready for memory. But let's say I thought, oh, this needs a little more space here, so I could just adjust that back up here if I needed, or whatever I needed. So, and I just wanted to kind of just show you a couple kind of open up. There's the English and the Spanish. So this was and this is the final. This is the final translation. So nicely formatted. And then I want to show you just kind of a couple others here. This is one that I got, and you can see all the distortion in here because it's a picture. You can see the stamps here, the verticals here. And so that's, and then this is my document that this is the final translation that I sent to Mike. So nicely formatted, everything in its place, all your tables, your vertical text here. For the stamps, because all four of these stamps were identical. Well, I put one stamp here, and then on the three on the bottom, I just did a note, 3 identical stamps and what they were. But I did all this in Abby with a full page table, so that's how I made that happen. So I just wanted to just kind of give you a couple examples. Here's for those of you in the room, come over here and sit behind me for a second, because I want something I forgot to show. So this, if you want, just because the projector's not on right now. So this is a document that I got in the other day, and the text here, I get a lot of diplomas and things like that. Abby did not like this old English style text at all, at all. But I still ran it through Abby. And the reason why is because now I have a setup. I have a structure. So this is my final document. And so everything is structured. The stamps are where they're supposed to be. The logo's where it's supposed to be. Everything's in its place. So even though I had to retype all this text, I still ran it through Abby so that I could do the format. So even though, like I said, even though I had to retype it, it was easier to retype it and have a structure than manually format this. And manually formatting it is how I used to do it, believe me. But this is what I do now. So yeah, I meant to show you when I was doing that, and I put. So that's where we're. Oh, yes, I can pull that back. So yeah, so if anybody everyone's contact me, there's my email, Twitter, LinkedIn. And I am happy to take questions and or anything, or reach out if you want. This was an overview. I have more. This was an overview. So if you're working on something and you have a difficult thing, like, hey, how do I do this? Send me an email. Send me, well, my phone number's not on here, but it's actually it's in the Chicago directory. But send me a text. And I can try to help you through it, because there's a lot of quirks, and I did not learn any. I didn't take a course. I didn't learn any of this by, this is all trial and error. I just, I learned on the fly. So if I can, so can you. So thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Beth. That's great. Great. I mean, she has a wealth of knowledge that she, by trial and error, and shared with us generously. And she offered to have, provide any assistance when you can. That's pretty cool. We have such a member to share that. That's all we're here for, to, learn from each other. So I hope this works for online folks and also on site. We're gonna have fun with on-site folks, but online, if anybody who have any questions or quick ones, and we have this recording and we hope to send to you. Hope the recording is good. It's all the experiment today. So, but I'm glad you're on the journey with us. Very, very helpful. Angela said, been giving all right. Yeah, we have very hardcore people today and learn a lot from this presentation. That's the purpose. And I'm glad we're able to provide online opportunity as well. Well, you're very welcome, Angela. And if you guys, Angela, Pat, and Lucia, thank you so much for tuning in and giving us this opportunity to give you online hybrid mode. We will see you next time, hopefully. Any final words before we signing off from Zoom? Angela, Pat, and Lucia? No? Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And we will keep in touch. We'll send the recording if we figure out how. It's a big file on my computer. So have a good rest of the weekend. Signing off. Thank you.